Welcome to the 531, where we debate a top 5 list on a particular subject, further discuss it down to a top 3, and then eventually settle on a top 1. Now after this beat, we'll get to today's subject.
Another week of the 531, where we take our top 5 list on a particular subject, vote it down to a top 3, and we debate that top 3 down to a number 1 spot. AJ requested it earlier this week. We're doing the top 5 brawlers. Before we get started, Dave, AJ, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm ready to go. I'm going to watch a little wrestling today. We are recording this on a Sunday. I'm going to watch a little SmackDown from the other night, watch the final chapter of Ray and Rollins. I'm going to watch TNA Turning Point because I was so busy. I forgot that was last night. I'm going to check that out.
That last night.
And I'm going to watch Talkin' Shop-A-Mania from a couple nights ago. So I'm going to watch a little wrestling and just relax today.
Well, like a wise man once said, I'm ready to snap into it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, so we're going to start big. We're going to start with Jesse from New Hampshire. And his top 5 brawlers are Onita, Terry Funk, Bruiser Brody, Mick Foley, and Abdullah the Butcher.
Good list. Nice that you put Onita down there. I'll tell you, not anybody I talked to actually put Onita down. So nice add-on there.
I hate to play spoiler, but he's the only person I see on his...
Okay, that's not a bad list. Yeah.
I don't like the Abdullah the Butcher one. I know that he was known for his bloodbaths, but to me, he could barely move, get out of his own way, and I don't really consider him a top brawler.
Yeah, I'm not a very, very big fan of Abby the person over the last few years, some of the stuff I've heard about him, but, well, we'll get into it later. I got on my own list.
You're not a fan of Hep C?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's down with Hep C? Yeah, you know me.
I'm going to go next year. I got my boy Scott from Voluntown. He's got Brody. He's got Hanson. He's got Terry Funk. He's got Foley. And he originally put down Stone Cold Steve Austin. But he asked me, would Vader be considered a brawler? And I said, or is he just a big man? I said, no, Vader falls under big man and brawler. And he said, all right, well, we're putting down Vader. Yeah, because to me, we'll get into that later, too, when I get to my list, too. Because, yeah, Vader's one of the all-time great brawlers. And also... Scott wanted to add in Ishii and everybody's favorite brawler, the Brooklyn Brawler.
Yeah, Scott just stole my thunder on one of them. But
I had a feeling.
Yeah, he had that famous brawl on WWE Superstars that we all loved.
Not to mention primetime wrestling, where
I don't understand. There is something I don't understand. He keeps showing up on people's lists. People keep putting the band Hanson on there. I mean, Boom Bop was a great song, but I don't really consider them brawlers.
Bring it home now.
I bet they had to brawl to keep that pussy off them concerts.
Yeah, I think the 3 Christian brothers definitely did. The ones that were all married at like 15 years old and still
married at 15, exclusive right here on the Working Fans podcast. AJ digging deep.
Oh man,
he knows.
Well, fuck them. We got Brandon Thomas up next. And he had Ron Simmons, Harley Race, Stan Hansen, Bradshaw, and if you have independent wrestling TV on ICW, it is Schlack versus his number 5, Haku. That was live from yesterday, and I'm going to be watching that after this. Because I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Schlack is the guy that in the backyard wrestling event had like a minor explosive set off on him. So I guess if there was anybody built to play Haku, it would be him.
Also, I'm glad he put Harley Race down there. Harley Race is a great brawler, great bumper, and behind the scenes, Harley Race might would have been one of the greatest brawlers of all time.
Often a barroom brawl that he enjoyed. Yes.
Apparently, yeah. I'm going to go with our boy.
What do you guys think about Ron Simmons on his list? I thought that was an odd choice for a brawler.
I mean, if you put into fact his time with the APA, all of the stuff they would do, like in the skits and everything like that, and brawling, I mean, I tend to think of Ron as more of an explosive power wrestler back in the day in his prime. But I think he falls in the list. But yeah, that's where I tend to think of him. I don't know you, AJ.
He can definitely classify as a brawler. I think to put him in the top 5 brawlers is a little asinine, to be honest with you. I don't think he belongs anywhere near the top 5, but definitely I could see where his style was brawling towards the end of his career.
See, and I wasn't as familiar with him with the APA. I was more like a Doom WCW guy.
Sure.
And I saw him as a power guy. It just didn't occur to me as a brawler, but
I think any list. It's funny that you mentioned that because I think any list that has him in their top 5 brawlers is doomed.
Well, I'm gonna go with my boy Jake St. John next here. He's got Bruiser Brody, Stan Hansen. I like this pick, by the way. The original Sheik, Mick Foley, and okay, hold on a second here. I'm going to buy a little time because I see Hansen written down twice, and that doesn't make sense to me. Hold on, buddy.
Maybe he did the band and the actor and the wrestler.
Oh.
We got Stan Hansen and then that young Hansen brother.
No. His first pick was supposed to be Steve Austin, so that is the problem. Now, he did have a couple honorable mentions. Rowdy Piper, Terry Funk, and Tommy Dreamer.
Jesus. Hey, I mean, the Jake rule is in full effect, right?
Every week, Jake sends us at least 10 people for the list.
No different. I did like the Sheik made the list. I've always seen the Sheik, I want to say maybe a couple times in my life. I saw some old tapes of the Sheik, and I still remember those matches. One was Maniac Mark Lewin, match in Detroit. It was just a great brawl. He hits him with a fireball. It's in black and white. And another match was Andre the Giant, where he pinned Andre the Giant after hitting him with a fireball. So,
well, the funny thing is the Sheik now has made a list, but his nephew Sabu has not made any lists yet.
That is interesting, because I'm not playing spoiler, but I'm not seeing him on any list here. So.
All right, my next list is from Roderick on Twitter. That's at Roderick76496943. We're glad you're free, brother.
Thank you. Roderick in the house.
Now, your list is, he's got Taker, he's got Big Show, he's got Abyss, he's got Kevin Nash, and he's got Steve Austin. AJ, you want to tackle what you think about this list first? I remember he's recently free, so
Kevin Nash, while a tough guy, absolutely ridiculous to have him on top brawlers. However, Steve Austin, is great of a technical wrestler as he was when he did become his biggest name, was a brawler because at that point he was limited and could only do so much. So it really was just kicks and stomps. I don't know if I still put him in my top 5 for brawlers. I think it was more the personality that got him over. The rest of his list, perfectly fine, I guess.
Hey, what do you think about Abyss? You know, is he a brawler? What about these guys that are like hardcore guys and they do like these crazy stunts?
I don't really consider Abyss or Mick Foley to be in my top 5 brawlers.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's going to offend some people with the Mick Foley one, but as usual, I don't give a fuck.
But why do you separate them differently, or do you just think that's just like
they are hard to me? Hardcore wrestling's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
I will give a little spoiler. There is somebody who is of the hardcore nature on my list, but it's more because I consider his style to be more of a brawling with a lot less wrestling involved. Whereas I think that Mick Foley and Abyss both used a lot more wrestling holds and not so much the brawling nature.
Well, why don't we switch it up and why don't we hear your list? I'm curious now.
You got that TV's Joe Stecker, don't you?
I've got Brody. I do have Stan Hansen. Obviously, those two guys are going to make a lot of lists.
Sure.
The guy who I was talking about was actually Balls Mahoney.
Ah.
To me, Balls Mahoney is one of the great brawlers and big men in his time period for ECW. Most of his matches with him and New Jack and stuff of that nature were just straight out brawls. Walter actually made my list.
Oh.
To me, Walter, with his chops and with his fighting, he is a good technical wrestler, but he could brawl as well. And his matches with Zack Sabre Jr. in places like PWG and in Progress were absolutely tear down the house brawls. And then I know you guys thought that I was going to have the Brooklyn Brawler when I said Scott stole my thunder, but I was actually talking about Ishii. The matches that he had with Tanaka, Shibata, and freaking Tanahashi were out of this world. He also made the never open weight title, which had been something somewhat glossed over and not really a big belt, into something that has become much more popular and a bigger belt. So to me, Ishii's one of the great brawlers.
I'm a little upset I didn't have Walter on my list after that fight he had with Dragunov on NXT UK. That's
just tore the house down.
Yeah.
By the way, Ishii, I love his nickname, the Stone Pitbull. To me, that's just an awesome nickname.
Yeah, between Walter and Ishii, those are two that I wish I put on my list because there was a couple WrestleMania weekends that me and Scott went to that Ishii popped up on a Rev Pro show. We saw him at a couple other ones, and that guy, hard hitting, and he really puts on a performance. Now,
the funny thing about Ishii, the funny thing about Ishii is he's 43 years old, and he doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. He seems to just be really clicking into his prime. So I look forward to what we're going to see from him.
Now, Dave, I'm going to do my list next.
Okay.
I've got New Jack, Piper, Funk. I have Sami Callihan fourth, and I have Stan Hansen fifth. I felt like I had to put Callahan in there because he is that borderline hardcore brawling type guy, but of the newer class of people that does it, he's got to be one of my favorite.
Callahan almost made my list.
Wow. See, and I thought that was going to be an out there pick. I'm like, I don't think anybody else is really going to think of him. But if you've watched enough MLW or Impact over the last 2 years, you've seen a lot of Callahan's work on display.
There's actually... Go ahead, AJ.
I was just going to say, I'll be honest with you. It came down to basically him or Balls Mahoney for me. And I did go with Balls Mahoney, but Callahan was that close to actually making my list.
It's actually...
What made you pick Balls over Callahan?
I don't think Balls gets enough credit. I think that because of his gimmick with the shorts and stuff like that, I think that a lot of times he gets glossed over, especially when it comes to how he made people in ECW. And I just think that he doesn't get enough credit for what he did for ECW.
There's actually a lot of underrated brawling, I would say, in MLW as a promotion, too. When you look at Contra Unit, the Von Erichs and stuff like that, they've had some of the best brawls, I think, in that company the last few years in wrestling right now. Like old-school type brawls.
For all the pull-aparts that World Class had, I mean, we've got Brody on here, but you would think there'd be maybe a Von Erich or two on there, maybe a Freebird, from all those wild fights they had.
Yeah, Gordy could have made it. He was somebody who was close to my list.
I'm going to get my man Randy, and then I'll finish up here. Randy Oscar's got Stan Hansen, Bruiser Brody, Steve Austin, Terry Funk, and Vader. So a lot of names we've been seeing on this list. All those guys are great brawlers. I'm going to just go right into mine then, and we'll finish this up. I got Terry Funk. I did put Abby on because to me, Abby is a career brawler. That's just what he's known for. It is what he does. The fork to the head, and he's toured the world, and he made some money off it at the end of the day. Brody, same thing. Vader, and Stan Hansen ultimately had to make my list too.
I hate Abby.
Well, I don't think he's going to be in our top five. Now, what's funny is we have a lot of recurring names here. Like Hansen, Brody seem to be on everybody's list pretty much. And then it looks like Funk and Austin and Vader made a lot of lists too.
Funk is one that is just amazing because, yeah, he was a great brawler, but you talk about somebody who in the beginning of their career, the first, decade, was a tremendous technical wrestler, and then for, the last, 40 years of his career, since he's been wrestling for 50 years now, he's been known for his brawling. So, yeah, I'm a little sad that I didn't put Terry on my list also.
I think Brody and Hansen have to be the two in the finals right now. I think we need to talk about who's going to join them, and I think it's got to be down between Austin, Funk, and Vader. And out of that group, I'm just going to start off, even though I wouldn't put him.
That's a Funk versus Vader debate to me.
Well, that's fine because to me, as much as Austin, pinnacle of his career, great brawler, as much as Funk is a legend, I'm going with Vader. Just those shots, those punches. They're ridiculous. His matches with Cactus Jack in WCW. His matches with Hansen in Japan with eyes popping out. I mean, there was also a match in Japan with Ken Shamrock where Ken Shamrock was winning. What a stiff bastard. I don't know. I think Vader makes a list in my mind.
I hate to say this. I agree with Dave.
There you go.
it pains me.
Yeah, I really can't argue against it.
Yeah.
That's Vader to me is one of the great brawlers. Even though he didn't make my list, he definitely had those heavy hands. And
if you think about it, now that we're talking about it, that's our final three: Hansen, Brody, and Vader. I mean, that's a fucking hell of a final three right there.
Yeah, that's a hell of a card in Japan in 1987.
So who's getting the boot then? I'll start with you, AJ. Who's getting the boot?
Vader.
Okay. We bring him in, we're kicking him out.
When you put it to that three, I mean, Hanson and Brody are so established in that role, and it's like, we almost had to make the case for Vader to get in as a brawler.
Yeah.
All you have to know as to who's the great brawler out of that group, fucking Hanson knocked Vader's eye out.
Sure. Yeah. I know this might not be popular, and it's a gun to my head kind of situation right now. I'm going to go with Hanson because of the unfortunate time we defa Brody, Hanson ended up having a longer run as that brawling style. Well,
the thing about both of them is, and this is something Vader didn't do, when Vader came through a crowd, you didn't have legitimate fear in the crowd.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, it's not like any of them weren't going to be afraid of him,
Sure.
face to face with him. But when Brody and Hanson came through the crowd, whether it was that fucking rope with the bell on it swinging around or whether it was just Brody's style, people literally would separate and part like the Red Sea because they were afraid they were going to get hurt. And when you draw that kind of fear from your brawling and from what's going on, that to me makes those two the most legit badasses and brawlers out of the group.
Yeah. So who are you picking?
Now comes the hard one.
Yeah.
100%.
I'm going to actually pick one of the two.
Like I said, I'm picking Hanson because of longevity. The unfortunate death of Brody is what I mean. I like Brody, but I just feel like Hanson had that longer run. I don't know.
I'm picking Hanson because I think Hanson, when he got into the ring, legitimately hurt people.
Yeah.
Whereas people talk about Brody and they talk about working with him, and other than Lex Luger, I don't think he ever legitimately scared his opponent. Whereas with freaking Hanson, the people in the ring with him were terrified.
Undertaker tells a great story about Undertaker had his very first match against Bruiser Brody, and he's looking him up. He's like, "Oh, I'm taller than this guy." And they ended up he accidentally stiffed Brody, and he didn't really think about it. He goes, "All right, I got this." And if for whatever reason he grabbed an arm and he started trying to call the match. It's his first match. And then Brody said, "Okay, this is what we're going to do." And he boots Taker in the head. He's seeing stars. And he starts to take him out of the ring for a ride. So there's no doubt Brody was a bad, bad man. But I think to quote Foley, maybe giving a guy who couldn't see the lariat as a finisher was a rib on the rest of us. So I'm leaning towards Hanson all day, baby.
Mbop.
Yeah, I've got to go with Hanson as well. I mean, I think
Man from Borger, as Joe was about to say.
today we're live at 6 p.m. Except Thanksgiving week, we'll be live at 5.
And one other thing too, after we just concluded Hanson was the winner, since I'm the one recording this today, I just want to point out that I had an issue with my Wi-Fi and immediately everything disappeared that you were just saying. So so we wrapped it up, and there's nothing else that's on here, by the way, just so you know. Whatever you were just saying about 6 p.m., don't know.
Oh, that's fine. I thought you meant you lost the whole thing.
No. He was.
You son of a bitch.
No. Joe was literally saying, "I got to go with Stan Hansen," and then that was it.
Good.
Oh, that's fine. I can cut the in and fuck it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll shut it off then. We'll just
Yeah, I was sitting there for a second like, Dave, are you just telling me we got to have this whole fucking conversation again?
Guys, thank you for listening to the 531 here on YouTube this week. If you like what you hear, you can always find us on Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and on the Apple Podcast where you can subscribe and also give us a 5-star rating. We appreciate you listening. We want your feedback, 531, and if you agree with us, if you disagree with us, we also want you to let us know, and let us know what your 531 would be. Come up with a top 5 and let us know, and we'll tell you why you're wrong. And in order for us to do that, please contact us on Twitter. We're at Fans Working. Facebook page, Working Fans Wrestling Pod. Email workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. It's very important that you actually contact us on these platforms because we want this to be your interactive place to talk wrestling.